Discover how a Mafia boss's heartwarming act of kindness changed 100 lives, overnight. Unbelievable. Maria sat cross-legged on her tiny living room floor, surrounded by the remnants of a long day. Toys, clothes, and an open homework book formed a chaotic backdrop, while her two children, Anthony and Sophia, laughing and bickering, sprinkled brief moments of light amidst her everyday grind. She worked 2 jobs, barely scraping by, her dreams constantly shot down by bills and empty fridges. Yet, the warmth of her children's laughter kept her heart full, even as the cold Brooklyn air seeped through the thin walls of their apartment. As the winter chill deepened, whispers circulated about Frank, the Heart Moretti, the notorious Mafia boss who ruled the streets with an iron fist. His sharp suits and chilling demeanor struck fear into the hearts of the locals, but one thing set him apart in the gritty neighborhood. He genuinely cared well, at least that's what some said. The tension in the air rose as his crew pushed out local businesses, igniting a fire of resistance among the people, who just wanted control over their lives. Every morning brought heated arguments at the diner, darkened by shadows looming closer with each passing day. One fated night, as Maria tucked her children into bed, an unexpected blizzard struck, a relentless torrent of snow that blanketed their world. The sirens of emergency vehicles echoed outside, mixing with the howling wind. Maria's grip tightened around her children, her heart racing with anxiety. How would they fare against this storm? Hours passed, and morning revealed a haunting sight. Dozens of homes were buried under snow, with over 100 families left homeless in the freezing darkness. Amidst the devastation, the community gathered in a makeshift relief center, a coming together of souls torn apart by harsh realities. Maria stood in line, fear hanging heavy in her chest as she surveyed the faces of displaced neighbors, mothers struggling to keep their children warm, fathers with deep creases of worry etched into their foreheads. Just then, a familiar figure entered Frank Moretti. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The whispers that filled the room shifted into silence as Frank stood before them, the aura of fear he usually commanded replaced with an unexpected sense of purpose. He promised food, shelter, and clothing almost like a miracle in a place where hope felt lost. "I'll help you," he said, his voice steady, yet humble. Disbelief rippled through the crowd, disrupting the air like a jolt of electricity. Maria's heart raced. How could the man, who represented everything wrong with their lives, be offering assistance? It felt like poison on her tongue. Just hours ago, she had been calling him a monster in her mind, struggling to provide for her beloved children. Yet here he stood, his heart unveiled, inviting them to trust him. The community meeting spiraled into chaos. Some voices shouted gratitude, others thundered accusations. What is his game? Is this a trap? Frank remained steadfast, unyielding in the storm of scrutiny. Maria felt swept up in the frenzy, torn by her disdain for his reputation, and a spark of hope igniting for a better tomorrow. But could a man like him really change? Would their world so harsh and unforgiving be able to transform through the strangest of sources? As Maria wrestled with her emotions, she saw a glimpse of possibility. Could this moment bridge the divide of fear? Or was it simply another betrayal lurking beneath the surface? The tension grew, leaving her breathless, excitement and doubt battling in her chest as the room buzzed around her, and she pondered the future that hung in the balance. The atmosphere crackled with disbelief. Some people stood frozen, while others flushed with anger. Maria could feel the weight of uncertainty pressing down on her like the snow outside. Is it really him? Sophia's soft voice tugged at her sleeve, breaking her deep thoughts. Mom, do you think he'll really help? Her own heart screamed in response. Can monsters transform? Maria gazed at her children. Antony's brow furrowed in worry, while Sophia looked up with wide, hopeful eyes. They didn't understand the implications of this sudden turn. They saw only the man before them, claiming to offer salvation. Maria inhaled slowly, trying to sift through the chaos around her. Frank was a paradox, dangerous yet strangely captivating. The gang he's built stirred shadows, but that night, he appeared as a beacon. Her instinct to flee battled with the ember of hope deep within her. Maybe it wasn't a trap. Maybe this was something larger than all of them. Listen up. A voice rang out, a burly man pushing his way toward the front. You think we can trust that snake? He's got his motives. Shouts heated the air, igniting the crowd like sparks to tinder. Maria glanced around. Fear and anger swelled into a tempest, boiling over into frustration at the man they had loathed for so long. Could they ever see him differently? Frank held his ground, unwavering. You think I'm here for the spotlight? I do what I do so people can thrive, not just survive, he called out with sincerity. The rawness of his words caught some people off guard, their lips parting in surprise. Was this true? Could a man who had done wrong ever find redemption? As murmurs filled the room again, Maria realized everyone was grappling with a choice to believe or not to believe. Reason bounced like a ball between the members of the community, each side clutching onto their convictions. She finally stepped forward, feeling the eyes of the room settle on her. But what if he's telling the truth? She said, her voice surprisingly steady. What if we let our own fear of him hold us back from hope? Silence stretched across the room, her words hanging heavy in the air. Moretti met her gaze, an unexpected flicker of respect forming in his eyes. For a moment, Maria saw a man willing to fight against his own past, and it made her stomach twist. Could she be the first to dare to step closer? Anthony tugged on her arm, his small hand shaking. Mom, are you sure? She knelt beside him, his innocence pulling her back from the edge of a decision one could not easily reverse. I don't know, baby, she admitted softly. But sometimes you have to take the leap. Sometimes taking a chance is the only way to change things. The murmurs swelled again, and Maria felt the community sway toward curiosity, maybe even hope. Frank's resolve bolstered the atmosphere, and his gaze sharpened as he spoke again. I'm giving away everything I have to help you all. Let us work together. This is the time. Then just as suddenly as it had begun, someone in the back whispered, what do we have to lose? The murmuring escalated into a wave, a collective spark of acceptance and alignment with the unknown. Maria stood taller, a warmth wrapping around her heart. This could change everything, but as quickly as excitement bubbled up, shadows gathered at the edges of her mind. Could she trust him? Could they trust him? The line between saving lives and risking them blurred, and a whole new journey began. With every heartbeat, Maria felt the thrill of hope harmonizing with her lingering doubt. Everything hinged on this night, on Frank's intentions, and the fragile bond between a mother's love and her community's future. As she took a deep breath, Maria understood that the winds of change had begun to blow. What they wouldn't know, that small act of trust could spark bigger transformations, or tear them all apart. And in that moment, with darkness lurking, she realized they weren't just fighting for warmth, food, or shelter. They were fighting for their very identities. Could they climb out of the shadows together? The room buzzed with a heady mix of suspicion and newfound hope. Faces that once glared with distrust now shone with curiosity. Maria could feel the energy shift, a fragile thread binding the community together, as they wrestled with the decision ahead. She looked down at Anthony, his eyes wide, searching hers for clarity in the turmoil. The truth, Frank continued, his gravelly voice echoing through the hall. The truth is, I've seen the darkness in people. But I've also seen their capacity for change. I'm offering you a chance. A chance to rise together. His gaze swept the crowd, landing momentarily on Maria, as if daring her to return his conviction. An uneasy quiet fell. Maria felt her heart beat louder in the silence. The walls around her felt like they were closing in. What if this really was their only way out? What if it wasn't he? Listen! Shouted Moretti again, the burly man still pushing back against the tide. You really think he can change? Once a gangster, always a gangster. The dismissive laugh from a few in the crowd echoed off the walls, but Maria could see some faces starting to reconsider. Enough! Came a small but powerful voice from the back. It was Linda, a single mother like Maria, who had fought to raise her kids in this broken town. I've seen him give food to the hungry. I've watched him lend a hand when no one else would. I can't believe he's here offering help, but maybe it's worth considering. Just think, Maria's breath caught. Linda had always had a knack for honesty, piercing through the noise. The memories flooded back, nights when they both stood in line for soup, desperate and scared. Frank had been hovering there, looming in the shadows, always giving when there was something to spare, even if there was skepticism surrounding his intentions. But trust was like ice, brittle and fragile. A bold step might seal their fate, or shatter it beyond repair. So we just forget all the lives he's ruined? Moretti interrupted, fire in his eyes. We play pretend that he's a hero now. Are we that desperate? The collective breaths held tight, disbelief and fear choking the air. Maria turned to Moretti, ready to defend. No one's asking us to forget. Just to look at the possibility that maybe he can help, maybe he's trying to atone. Something flickered in Frank's expression, a flash of gratitude, maybe. He nodded slightly, acknowledging her words. I'm not asking for blind trust. I'm offering a handshake. We can either cling to our past grudges, or look toward a future together. As the words sank in, a single tear fell from Sophia's eye, reflecting both hope and uncertainty. Maria wiped her palm against her jeans, gathering strength. She straightened and spoke again, her voice steady. What if we're at a true turning point? Can we afford to turn our backs on a chance for change? The room held its breath. Then, like a match striking a soft flame, someone near the front raised a hand. I'm in, they said, voice wavering but resolute. More voices joined in, swelling the group like a tide, some willing to try. Others, still skeptical, remained. Maria felt a surge of relief, but the shadows still whispered at the edges of her mind. She stood tall, breathless, recognizing the risk they were taking. For every heart that would beat in shared resolve, others would quiver with fear. Let us meet tomorrow, said Frank, a tinge of hope shimmering in his tone. We'll talk specifics. Together, we can redefine what it means to survive. As the crowd began to disperse, Maria caught Anthony's gaze. We did the right thing, didn't we? He asked, whispering as they moved toward the exit. I hope so, sweetheart, she replied, casting a glance back at Frank, who watched the crowd dissolve with an intensity that felt almost protective. Because she realized now, it was not just about trust in him. It was also about trusting themselves and their capacity for change. But deep within, a flicker of fear settled. Would this chance be one of those rare moments of redemption, or was it merely a step toward betrayal? In the silent embrace of the night, Maria could only hold her breath and wish for the best. As they walked back toward home, a question danced in her mind: if they dared to trust Frank, what would that truly mean for them all? The sun peeked over the horizon, spilling soft light into Maria's small kitchen. She stood by the window, coffee in hand, lost in thoughts of the meeting. Anthony had already left for school, his backpack bouncing against his small frame. He had been quiet that morning, still processing everything from the night before. She hoped he was staying hopeful, but she couldn't shake her own uneasiness. Her mind replayed Frank's words, the moment he extended his hand, promising change. Everyone's faces were a mix of skepticism and hope, just like hers. Some would remember only the fear he caused, but others might see past it into the potential for healing. Could they really move forward as a community? As she sat at the kitchen table, she heard a knock at her door. It was Linda, her cheeks flushed with excitement. "Did you hear? Moretti's talking about rallying people against Frank." Maria's stomach twisted. "He's just being defensive. It's normal to be cautious." "You really think that?" Linda leaned closer, her voice dropping. "I can't help but feel like some of us are finally getting a chance." But if Moretti rallies a crowd, Maria stared into her coffee. The turbulence within her mirrored the uncertainty around them. "I want to believe it could work, but what if we're being naive? What if we just put ourselves back into the cycle of disappointment?" Linda shook her head, determination flaring in her eyes. "What if making this choice is the very thing that could change our town for the better? If Frank truly wants to help, why not give him a shot?" Heavy footsteps sounded on the porch, and the door creaked open. It was Moretti, his features taut with intensity. "I saw you two in here. I'm organizing a meeting tonight to confront Frank. We need to stand up for what's right. We can't let this go unchallenged." Maria felt the weight of his words close in on her. "And what is your plan, Moretti? To keep us in conflict? All you'll do is further divide us." His eyes narrowed, frustration brewing. "This isn't just about trust, this is about safety. We can't let him walk in and ruin what little stability we have left." But was that true? Maria's heart raced as thoughts spiraled. Maybe it was easier to cling to anger and fear, but could that ever lead to progress? "We need to at least talk to him again. See what he's really planning," she urged cautiously. Moretti scoffed, making Maria's gut twist with disappointment. "Talk? You really think he'll show his true colors in the light? It's only shadows and schemes that we know him for." She felt cornered, weighed down by the choices spiraling before her. "I'm not saying we surrender to him. But unity takes courage. Gather everyone tonight, and I'll join. But it's not just to fight back. We need clarity." Moretti's eyes softened, but only for a moment before his resolve hardened again. "Fine, one last chance. But I won't back down if it goes astray." He stormed out, leaving Maria and Linda exchanging worried glances. "What now?" Linda whispered, her brow creased with concern. "I don't know." Maria leaned back, heart pounding with anticipation. Tomorrow's meeting could change everything. It's either about moving forward or digging a deeper hole. In the depth of uncertainty, Maria felt the smallest glimmer of hope fight against the weight of dread. They were about to step into a storm, a moment that could bring either clarity or chaos. As Maria stared into her cup, she realized tomorrow could either shatter their chances or spark a revolution against despair. The thought sent chills down her spine. Would they find the strength to face whatever lay ahead? The answer danced just beyond her grasp, and all she could do was prepare for the encounter. Could the community really navigate its way through the turbulence? Would they unite, or would they fracture under the weight of their fears? The air was heavy with anticipation as the sun dipped low, casting long shadows across the town. Maria stepped out onto her porch, feeling the cool breeze brush against her skin. Tonight wasn't just another evening. It was the moment they would either embrace change or fall back into the shadows of their fears. As she walked through the familiar streets, her thoughts spiraled. The soft murmur of voices, the sounds of kids playing, mingled with flashes of doubt. Would the community really come together? Or would they split apart like so many times before? Each step felt weighted as if the ground beneath her was holding its breath. When she reached the community center, a small crowd had gathered. Moretti was already there, his arms gesticulating wildly as he spoke. Maria caught snippets of his passionate speech. "We can't let him manipulate us again. We need to fight back." The fire in his voice was unmistakable, but so was the anxiety radiating from the group. Faces were tense, fists clenched, eyes glancing toward the door as if waiting for an omen rather than a visitor. "Let us give him a chance," Maria spoke up, stepping into the light. "We won't know unless we hear him out." The murmurs quickened, some nodding hesitantly while others shot her questioning looks. She felt a rush of resolve. No matter how it turned out, they had to be clear-minded. "You think he'll just stroll in here and apologize?" Moretti shot back, sarcasm dripping. "No, he's here to play games." "He might surprise us," Maria replied, lifting her chin defiantly. Her heart hammered in her chest, willing her courage to resonate. "Listen to her," called out Linda from the back, a spark igniting. "One chance for unity. How about that?" The room's energy shifted. Hope began replacing fear, tiny flames igniting in eyes that previously darted around in suspicion. Maria seized the moment. "What we choose tonight doesn't just affect us. It can build a bridge for our kids and their futures. We owe it to them to at least try." With a nervous anticipation, the crowd shifted, some stepping closer, their anger softening. Voices began mingling, doubts giving way to a shared sense of possibility. Just then, the door creaked open. Frank stood on the threshold, uncertain yet determined. The collective tense inhale from the room stung the air. He wore the weight of the past, a mix of fear and bravado. "I know it's hard to trust me," he began, his voice steady, though the flicker in his eyes gave him away. Moretti stepped forward, ready to challenge, but Maria raised her hand, urging calm. "Let us hear him. Let us hear what he has to say." Frank took a step inside and closed the door behind him. There was a palpable shift in the atmosphere, a collision of uncertainty and potential. Maria's heart quickened. This moment was fragile, they needed to hold on to it. "Thank you for letting me be here," Frank said, and there was an unusual softness in his tone. "I want to show you I can be different, that I can help." As he spoke, Maria looked around at the faces around her. It felt like they were all for the first time, choosing to listen, choosing to take a risk. The warmth of the room contrasted the chill of doubt that had overshadowed them for so long. What would happen next? Would Frank's words penetrate the walls built from years of fear, or would they crumple under scrutiny? As Maria's heart beat wildly in her chest, she felt the echo of hope ripple through the crowd. And in that moment, she realized this was more than just a meeting. It was a chance to redefine everything. But as Frank continued, the unexpected slipped through the door, and the tight-knit community was about to confront its hidden fears in ways they hadn't anticipated. Would they embrace the possibility of redemption, or retreat back to the safety of anger? With each word Frank spoke, Maria's uncertainty deepened. Would tonight reshape their future, or plunge them into deeper chaos? Frank took a deep breath, the weight of the moment sinking in. "I came back because I know I've hurt you all," he said, his voice quivering slightly. "I made mistakes, and I can't change the past. But I can try to fix what I've broken." The sincerity in his eyes caught Maria off guard. She felt a flicker of something. Was it trust? Moretti crossed his arms, still skeptical. You think some words are just going to wash away the pain you caused. People lost everything because of your choices. The crowd murmured, tension mounting once more. Maria felt the energy in the room tremble like a taut wire. Would it snap or hold? I understand, Frank responded quietly, his gaze steady and unwavering. And I'm not asking for forgiveness. Just a chance to show that I can be part of this community, to invest in it instead of taking. You think we should just forget? Moretti challenged, stepping closer, his voice rising. Forget that families were torn apart. That trust may never come back. I don't expect you to forget, Frank said, his voice gaining strength. But I want to help, really help. I'm willing to put my resources where my mouth is. We need a community center. Somewhere for kids to go after school, for classes, for events. And I want to fund it. A hush fell over the room. Maria's heart raced. The idea was bold, perhaps absurd, but the faces of those around her began to shift. Could he really mean it? Finally, Linda spoke up, her eyes glimmering with something akin to hope. We desperately need that. But it can't be one-sided. Can you promise us you'll stay involved? Not just hand us a check and disappear. Frank nodded earnestly. I promise. This isn't a favor, this is a commitment. I want to be here, to help rebuild what I helped tear down. The atmosphere grew heavier, heavy like the clouds before a storm. Maria felt the collective doubt, and the cautious excitement swelling. It was as if they were at the edge of a cliff, peering into the murky abyss below. What if this is just a ruse? Someone in the back whispered nervously. What if he's using us again? That fearful question rippled through the crowd, and Maria felt her heart drop. These fears are valid, and I understand, Frank interjected. But we can't let our past hold us back from potential. I know I've created a wall between us, but I'm asking you to take a chance. For our kids. The way he emphasized our hung in the air. Maria knew that word meant shared responsibility, shared hope. She captured the hesitant glances of her neighbors, and in that moment, she realized they were being challenged to confront more than just Frank, they were being asked to confront their own reluctance to hope, to believe. What do we have to lose? Maria said, her voice steady now. We've been fighting against each other for so long. Maybe it's time we try to build something greater together. An unexpected wave of murmurs filled the room, a surge of contemplation and emotion washed over them. Then, the unexpected occurred. A little boy at the front, maybe 7 or 8 years old, raised his hand. Will you do it, mister? He shouted, his voice untainted by skepticism. Will you really help us? The room fell silent, every eye on Frank. There was a moment that felt suspended in time, a heartbeat where decision loomed larger than fear. Frank knelt down, meeting the boy's gaze. Yes, I will, he said, the words pouring from him like a promise. Maria's breath caught in her throat. She watched as Frank reached out to the boy, a sudden bond forged in the silence. The room held its breath in anticipation. Would they rally behind the hope he offered, or would bitterness keep them separated? And as she awaited the reactions of those around her, Maria felt a stirring deep within. This could change everything. Could they truly allow change to begin? Then, a clap echoed from the back of the room, followed by another, and soon, the sound swelled like a tide. Hope and fear intertwined, and Maria realized their decision was hanging by a thread, ready to snap. Would they grasp at the possibility for a brighter future or let it slip away? As Frank stood there, vulnerable and determined, the clock ticked toward a pivotal moment. Would they dare to leap into the unknown together, or fall back into the shadows? The applause grew louder, filling the room with an unexpected warmth. Maria could feel the shift in the air, the transformation of hesitance into something more potent hope. It surged through her like electricity. Frank's eyes widened as he realized the power of that moment, the way it wrapped around him like a comforting blanket. "See," Frank said, his confidence blooming. "This is what we need. Unity. Togetherness. I don't want to just come in as the guy with the money. Let us make this harmonious. A community center isn't just for kids, it's for everyone." His words were rich with earnestness. Moretti stood frozen, clearly conflicted. The skepticism that had once shielded him was now cracking. His brow furrowed, caught between anger and contemplation. "You say all these things, but how can we trust you?" He looked around the room, gauging the reactions. "It's simple really," Frank replied, his voice lower now, almost like a whisper. "Let us start with transparency. I'll open the books, give updates, and involve committees. It'll be your voices, your crafts and ideas that shape this place." Maria watched as Moretti's arms relaxed, his stance less defensive. "You're talking big," he finally said, though without the sharp edge he had before. "But it's more than words. Actions speak louder." "I know," Frank nodded earnestly. "Let us get together, start small. We could host a town hall this weekend. I'll answer every question, take every suggestion. We'll plan this together." With each passing moment, skepticism began to wane. The crowd's expressions softened. Linda smiled faintly, nudging Moretti with an encouraging glance. "Okay," Moretti said slowly. "But let us not forget, actions do count. If you bail, we'll be waiting." "But if you mean it," he trailed off. And there was a shared understanding in the room now, a desire to believe, to heal. Frank inhaled deeply, his relief evident. "I promise you won't regret this." He turned to the little boy who had spoken earlier, still standing with hope in his wide eyes. "What would you like to see in our community center?" All attention shifted to the child, whose innocence radiated through the tension. "A place to play and learn. And maybe a garden where we can plant stuff," he exclaimed, his enthusiasm contagious. Laughter rippled through the crowd, and soon people were chiming in with their own ideas: a library, computer classes, art workshops. As they spoke, the energy in the room transformed again, morphing into excitement. Maria could feel tears brimming in her eyes. This was the promise of something new, something beautiful. "Just think about the dreams we're planting," Frank said. "Together, we can make this happen." Then a voice from the back called out, "You better make sure we get the best swings in that playground." The crowd erupted in laughter, easing into a collective momentum. Maria couldn't help but smile brightly. She caught Frank's eye, and for a moment, the entire room faded. It was just the two of them, standing on the brink of change. With the clamor of hopeful chatter surrounding them, she leaned in slightly. "Do you really believe this will work?" "I have to," he whispered back. But doubt flickered in his eyes, just for an instant. As the meeting continued with laughter and plans, Maria couldn't shake the feeling. The contours of their new beginning lay ahead, illuminated by the glow of collective hope. But one question loomed larger: could Frank navigate the tightrope of trust? Or would his past catch up with him when he least expected it? The murmur of excitement continued to swell, but deep down, Maria sensed a storm gathering on the horizon. Would the foundation they were building withstand whatever challenges awaited? She glanced at Frank, determination etched on his face, and wondered what would happen when the shadows of the past came knocking on their bright new future. As the meeting began to wind down, Maria felt the pulse of energy shift. The laughter faded into a low hum of discussion, but excitement lingered in the air. People had concerns, yes, but the laughter had stitched a patch of hope over their frayed expectations. Frank moved from person to person, soaking in their ideas and stories. Maria watched him, admiring how he connected effortlessly with everyone. His smile was genuine, and she couldn't help but feel a swell of pride. Yet, even amidst the growing camaraderie, the lingering shadow of his past gnawed at the edges of her consciousness, making her stomach tighten. Maria. Someone called her name, pulling her from her thoughts. It was Linda, a sweet lady with kind eyes, who had been sitting nearby. "Can I talk to you for a moment?" "Of course," Maria replied, taking a step closer, her heart bubbling with anticipation for more good news. "What is up?" Linda looked around, ensuring no one else could hear. "I know you've been getting close to Frank." Her voice dropped to a conspiratorial whisper. "Do you trust him?" The question hung in the air, heavy with implications. Maria hesitated, glancing back at Frank, who was struggling to reach an ever-growing crowd. "I want to," she admitted softly. "He seems sincere, but exactly, but..." His past Linda's brow furrowed, filled with worry. "I mean, can we really trust someone with such a history? I've heard things." "I know," Maria interrupted, feeling a chill run down her spine at the thought, "but isn't this about more than one person? This is a chance for the community. For all of us." "That's true," but before she could finish, a loud noise broke through the crowd, a sudden shout that cut through the earlier laughter. Maria turned towards the door, her eyes narrowing. A group of men stood just outside, their faces angry and twisted with contempt. Frank looked up too, his expression shifting from joy to concern. "What the hell?" Maria whispered, her heart pounding. She felt an involuntary urge to retreat, but she stood her ground. The tension in the room thickened, palpable, as whispers of confusion spread. "Those are the guys from Frank's old life, aren't they?" Linda blurted out, her voice tight with fear. I think so," Maria replied, her throat dry. Frank stepped forward, his posture straightening as he addressed the growing crowd. "Everyone, stay calm." His voice carried authority, but there was a tremor beneath it. "I'll handle this." "Frank, no!" Maria shouted, rushing towards him. But he was already striding towards the door, determination written all over his face. With each step, Maria felt dread wash over her like a cold wave. What would happen if the shadows from his past caught up with him now, when everything was falling into place? The murmurs in the room grew louder, filled with apprehension. Moretti moved closer to Linda and Maria, concern lining his features. "What do we do?" he asked, his gaze flicking between them and the doorway. "I don't know," Maria admitted, her heart racing. "But if Frank can confront them, we have to trust him." Just as she spoke, the door swung open fully, and Frank's voice rang out a mix of pleading and challenge. "Let us not do this here." But his words hung in the air, unanswered. Maria felt her heart race. Everything they built was now hanging by a thread. Would this confrontation bring healing, or tear apart the fragile unity they'd only just begun to form? As the two groups faced off, Maria felt the weight of uncertainty press down on her. Would the community center become a beacon of hope, or the site of their downfall? Tomorrow would bring answers, but right now, all she could do was wait in the eye of the storm. What would happen next? The whistle of wind cut through the air as the door swung open, and the tension inside the community center mounted. Frank stepped out, eyes fixed firmly on the group of men he'd both fled from and fought to leave behind. Maria could barely breathe, the weight of their collective history thickening the air like smoke. "Frank!" she called, desperation lacing her voice. But he'd already stopped short, standing his ground, the familiar resolve hardening his features. "What do you want?" he demanded, voice steady, but edged with a vulnerability she had rarely seen. The men shrugged, their matching scowls painting the picture of confrontation. Maria's heart raced. Could a man truly change, Or was he still that shadow, lurking just beneath the surface? What do we want? One of the men stepped forward, scoffing. We want the old Frank back, the one who knew which side his bread was buttered on. The words struck like a blow. Maria flinched, feeling the collective gasp of the people behind her. Frank's jaw tightened, but his eyes held something softer, a mix of regret and anger. That's not who I am anymore. I'm not turning back. A murmur rippled through the crowd. People were shifting, caught in the uncertainty of the moment. Maria stepped forward, propelled by a need to protect. Frank has changed. He is trying to build something better for all of us. You can't just walk in here and think you can take him away. Her voice quivered, but she stood taller, feeding off the courage that surged from her heart. Silence followed, punctuated only by the distant chatter of the street outside. The men exchanged glances, the tension palpable. Perhaps they hadn't expected such defiance. One of them leaned in, menacingly close to Frank. You think they're all going to stand by you when they find out what's lurking in your past? You think this is over? Enough. Frank interrupted, his voice cutting through the heavy air. I'm done living in fear of what I used to be. It's time for you to move on too. The words held power, but Maria could see the crack in Frank's armor. She stepped even closer, weaving her fingers through his, grounding him. No more running, no more hiding, she murmured, heart beating hard against her chest. For a moment, Frank's expression softened, and she could see an ember of hope flicker in his eyes. But then, the lead man's scowl deepened. We'll see how long that lasts. But know this, Frank, those who forget their past are destined to repeat it. And with that, the group retreated, leaving only the residue of despair in their wake. Frank stood frozen, fists clenched at his sides, wrestling with a storm of emotions. Maria felt the air shift around them, her heart ached for him. What did it mean to truly break free from your past? Are you okay? She whispered, fearing the answer. His gaze fell to the floor, shadows dancing across his features. I don't know. I don't know if I can ever really be free, he admitted, vulnerability cracking through his brave facade. The crowd remained silent, watching their leaders with anticipation. Maria's thoughts whirled. This wasn't just about Frank anymore, it was about all of them. They were fighting for a dream, a new beginning against a tether of fear. Then we fight together, she stated firmly, determination brewing. You're not alone, and neither are we. As the room filled with murmurings of support and camaraderie, hope flickered like a candle in the dark. Frank shot her a grateful look, and she felt a surge of resolve swell within her own heart. But even as warmth spread through the community, doubt crept in at the edges. Could they truly succeed against the looming threat of his past? They would have to face it head-on, one way or another. Tomorrow, they'd gather to build a new plan. What would that plan look like? And, more importantly, would it be strong enough to weather the storm ahead? The morning sun rose gently over the quiet streets of Brooklyn, casting warmth on the community center packed with hopeful faces. Maria stood at the entrance, a knot of anticipation swirling in her stomach. Today was the day Frank would share details about the community center, and they would collectively confront their fears. As the murmurs turned into laughter and excited chatter, Maria's heart swelled with determination. This place, their gathering spot for shared hope and dreams, would mean so much more than a building. It would symbolize resilience, unity, and the courage to embrace change. Frank entered, and the room quieted, his presence commanding yet different, softer somehow. Thank you all for being here, he began, looking out into the crowd, his eyes meeting Maria's with a flicker of resolve. I know yesterday wasn't easy. But today, I'm asking you all to help me turn this vision into reality. People leaned forward, feeding off his energy, eager to hear. This is our chance to create not just a center, but a safe haven for our kids, for all of us. He began sharing plans for classes that would uplift kids, teaching them to plant gardens, learn art, and even start tech workshops. The ideas spilled out, filling the room with laughter and enthusiastic cheers. However, Maria's heart sank as she remembered the confrontation outside Frank's past lurking like a shadow behind these bright dreams. But what about the men from last night? She thought, feeling uncertainty creep in. Could they truly form a new future together? Moretti, standing strong at her side, cleared his throat. We need clarity, firm commitments. This is our community too, and we won't just stand by and watch. His bold challenge rippled through the room, caution replacing the earlier cheer. Frank nodded, understanding. You're right. I want to create a counselor group made of you. I'll have no say over the center without your voices. This is not about me, it's about all of us. As the murmurs enveloped the room again, Maria felt threads of hope weaving through their collective hearts. Those initially skeptical now stood beside her, eyes brightening with the possibility of change. It was Linda who stood up first. I want to help organize the classes. Our kids deserve this, she said, her voice filled with conviction. Others chimed in, hands raised, spirits lifted. Together, they brainstormed ideas for activities, a sense of unity blossoming in every word. For the first time, Maria believed they could create something breathtaking out of their pain. Just as enthusiasm peaked, a ripple of tension surged through the crowd. A weary voice emerged from the back. What if those men come back? What if they try to tear this all down? Frank met the challenge head-on. Then we stand together. We confront it as a community. We can't let fear linger, we owe it to ourselves and our children to embrace this fight, and not run from it. Maria felt the collective heartbeat of determination pump through them, a wave of unified resolve. This was their chance not to just build a center, but to forge a community tied together in courage and resilience. In the following hours, laughter and planning filled the air. The road ahead was uncertain, but each shared story, shared smile, and shared hope solidified a newfound bond. Frank stood beside them, not as a monster, but as a partner looking to atone and uplift. Maria could see it, his vulnerability paired with sincerity. When the meeting finally concluded, the air hummed with excitement. They had laid a foundation that felt tangible and real. As Maria stepped outside, she breathed deeply, allowing the warmth of the sun to wrap around her. Her heart raced as she looked down at Frank, who stood surrounded by the community. She could see it, the promise of change wasn't just in the center, it was in each person flickering with hope, ready to forge ahead together. Hey, Frank said, catching her gaze. Thank you for believing. Thank you for showing up, she replied, feeling the warmth of her heart expand. The shadows of his past didn't overshadow them. Together, they had begun to rewrite a story, shaping it into something monumental. This was it. A moment that swept them into an inspiring transformation. Their fight, the journey ahead, it wasn't just for a center, or a retreat from fear. It was for identity, for community, and for the resilient spirit that Brooklyn embodied. As she walked home, buoyed by pride and hope, Maria knew they were ready. Ready to face challenges, embrace change, and confront the past. Her children ran toward her, laughter ringing in the air, and together they stepped forward into a new dawn, united, determined, and fearless. And just like that, the seeds of transformation planted that day would echo in their lives, proving that even a mafia boss could find redemption and light in the most unexpected corners of darkness. Now you need to subscribe immediately to the channel, so you don't miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Seriously, it makes a difference. Comment your reactions and feelings about this ending, we want to hear from you. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Don't wait not even one more second to show your support. Only true fans understand the importance of these actions.